Welcome y'all to Bayou Land Churches, episode number 16. So gosh, it feels like I have not done one of these videos in quite some time now. But anyways, we are back in the rhythm of things. And just to update y'all on some of the stuff that's been going on here at the parish. So we recently had our St. Philomena Festival celebration, and it went very well. Very well. Especially given the circumstances of the weather. It was good because I was praying just all the way up until Sunday morning, and I was checking my phone constantly to see, checking the radar, checking the forecast, and at one point I just gave it up because I was like, this is not helpful anymore. This is more of an addiction now, just sitting there making sure it doesn't rain. What power can I have over that? And so I just told the Lord, I'm gonna just leave it in your hands. We're praying for good weather. Give us good weather so that everything can flow smoothly. And luckily, thanks be to God, the Lord had listened to our prayers. And it didn't rain until almost the very last person leaving. We're talking about leaving the campus. We cleaned up and everything, and it drizzled a little bit, but it wasn't bad at all. But thanks be to God, everything went well. We sold out on all of the food, and the auction went incredibly well. So next year we'll be having another one. And I just want to say thank you to all those who had not only pitched in with the preparation, with the planning, meeting almost every week up until our festival began, and also the setting up of the whole festival and then the tearing down. I mean, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work for a festival. And so may the Lord continue to bless you and your family, to give you good health and well-being, that you may be able to serve Him and our parishioners for as long as you're able to. Okay, so this coming Tuesday, we also have the discussion and study on Divine Mercy. That's going to be session 8 of 9. After this Tuesday, there will be one more left, and that's going to be here at St. Anne on Tuesday. It will begin at 6 o'clock. So Father Matthew Graham will be leading that discussion and study. Let me just make sure I got the time right for you, but I'm pretty sure it's at 6 o'clock. I'm getting all my times and whatnot messed up. So 6 o'clock on that Tuesday coming, we'll have the study and discussion. All right. Our advisory council meeting will be this coming Wednesday, and that is going to take place at 6:15 here at St. Anne Rectory. So the purpose of the advisory council, again, is to help me take a look at some of the overall pictures of our operation of the three parishes, and to see what's working well, what's not working well. And once we have that meeting all finished and everything, obviously we'll be sharing some of that information with you. So anyway, pray for us that we have a good meeting. We meet about 4 to 5 times a year, depending on our needs. And the reason why we meet so little is because, again, this is one of those committees that help to drive the overall operation of the parish. And so it's helpful for me if we just meet whenever we need, and the space in between, the time in between, is to help us pray, because running a parish without prayer it's going to lead to doom. You'll find that out in just a little second. I'll talk a little bit more about leading others in a little bit, but I found in our group, it's always led with prayer. The mass schedule change was also led with prayer, and I was just talking about this with a couple of people. We were talking about mass attendance, and just looking at the last year of our mass attendance. And if I may share this, I had the most resistance about the 11 o'clock mass. Okay, when we changed this mass time, I had so many people who come to me and give me so much complaints about the 11 o'clock mass. But yet, that 11 o'clock mass is the most well attended mass. We're looking at even the 4 o'clock, the 7 o'clock, the 9 o'clock. The 11 o'clock is the most attended mass. And the way that I usually gauge that is not only by count. Okay, so like, I mean, obviously, celebrating Mass week after week, you kind of get a sense of how many people show up to worship. Um, and just by glance, I can have a good estimate of like, how many people come. So, because I used to sit there before Mass and I would count, without a counter, but I would sit there and I would count. And just over time, you get a good sense of like how many people are coming. And so at the 11 o'clock now, by my estimation, on average, we will be having around anywhere between 300 to 330 people who would show up for Mass. Sometimes more. Sometimes the church is just maxed. The church can comfortably sit 450 people. Now it's going to be, everyone having their own little space and there's no room. The max capacity in that church is probably around 500, and having around 300 to 330 people, I mean, it's comfortable. Like, you can definitely fit some more people in there. And another way that I gauge how many people come to Mass is by the communion line. Uh, you know, if I'm going in the back of my mind, like, gee, when is the communion line is going to end? It's a long line. And again, it's a good problem to have. This is a really good problem to have. I'm talking to some of my other brother priests in our deanery, and some of their masses are not as well as attended. Even their largest mass may hit 250, 280, but for us, the 11 o'clock mass has always been the most well attended mass, hands down. Even at times compared to the 4 p.m. on Saturday. The 4 p.m. on Saturday is also a big hit anywhere you go. But again, compared to the 11 o'clock Mass, the 11 o'clock Mass wins hands down. So again, that was led through prayer that, hey, we're going to do this, and the Holy Spirit guided that conversation that we have that 11 o'clock Mass. It was something I was worried about, but again, those of y'all who have spoken with me on a number of occasions have heard me say that when I made the Mass schedule change and decided upon that with the help of other people, I felt very at peace. It was not something that I had lost sleep over. I was worried, okay, but it wasn't something that I had lost sleep over, because we prayed with it, and the Holy Spirit really guided that entire conversation. So, again, prayer can guide a lot of things in life. Anyways, moving on. The sign project is really moving on now, moving along now. We recently was able to get a guy. He came out, and Mr. Paulo, and he was able to do the forming. He dug the hole, formed it, and was about to pour concrete. But it's been raining in the last couple of days, so that project have been put on hold, just temporarily for the time being. But I'm looking at the next 2 weeks, that whole thing should be done. And for the most part, almost everything was donated except the labor and the work for the material for Mr. Paulo. But almost everything else was completely donated, either by friends of the parish, parishioners themselves, or pretty much friends of the parish and the parishioners have donated everything. So once it's done, obviously you will see it, but I will showcase that off and bless all of our signs. I have also mentioned one thing about the mausoleums. Like I said in a number of the videos past, I think it's in episode number 11 that I kind of laid it out in full detail. But as of yesterday, Sunday, we have 18 families over at St. Philomena who've already signed up, and we have 6 families over at St. Anne who have signed up for the mausoleum crypts. American Mausoleum, who is our contractor, they will not begin the project until they get at least 25 families. Obviously, this is a business for them. And so if they don't get their number, they're not going to begin. So like I said, for options, you either have to go to, if you don't have already a crypt, you either have to go to Assumption, past Assumption to Pankerville or Belrose, and the other place that potentially you can go to also are any of the parishes in Thibodaux. But if you want your final resting place to be here, I would encourage you to sign up. Now, again, you're basically purchasing a plot. Okay, so this is not a piece of land, but this is a piece of property in a building. So here are the mausoleum crypts. Again, it's a piece of investment. It's going to cost something, and obviously, with American Mausoleum, they work with allowing you to do payments over the course of years. So as you're investing into this, let's say down the line you're like, yeah, I'm gonna change where I would like my final resting place to be. You can sell off this crypt, how many ever that you have. You can sell it off and make money off of it, because again, this is an investment, and crypts only go up in price. It does not depreciate in value. So again, I'm not wishing death upon anybody. The less funeral masses that I have, the better. But as a way to continue with our moving forward our parishes and making this parish yours, to where you can finally have your resting place here. I'm going to encourage you to pray and think about it. Anyways, the last thing that I have will be so it's titled A Catholic Men's Evening Out. So if I remember the date correctly, it's probably going to be about in April or May. So a few months after our men's conference. And we got like a group of 30 plus guys together, between 30 and 40. I can't remember exactly the number. Maybe 38 men had showed up to our time for adoration and prayer. Prayer for yourself, for your family, and after all the men have gotten together to pray, we had about a good hour-long dinner and fellowship. So we're having that again. That's going to take place on Friday, October 12th, at Assumption Church from 6:30 p.m. until about 7:30. I'd like to cap it off around 7:30. Again, those who know me, I like to begin on time and end on time. And when we put a cap on things and we don't hang around and just let it go on until whenever, it leaves this feeling of, I'd like to come back and try this again. There's a rule, I can't remember the law of diminishing of returns. Basically, it states that at some point too much of something is no longer good. So this is why when you go to a fine dining restaurant, they give you such small portions, because food is not everything about a meal. So when you're sitting and having a meal together, you're also enjoying not only the service, the meal itself, but also the interaction with other people. And so they give you a small portion that you can also enjoy other things. Those of y'all, myself included, who have overeaten, know that by the time if you're stuffing yourself at the end of that meal, you probably don't feel too good. You feel great when you take that first bite, and you feel great when you're eating, but by the end of that meal, you don't feel so good. And so they give you these small portions. That first bite is going to be heavenly. That second bite is still going to be good, but it's not going to be as good as the first bite. And the third bite is going to be still as good, but not as good as the first or the second. So as you continue to eat, the law of diminishing return kicks in. So same thing with time. If we're setting up a meeting and we're going, hey, let's meet for an hour, and we go 3 hours, our likelihood of sitting down of meeting again is probably close to none, because we take from past experience and we're going, that meeting that we had went on for 3 hours. I don't know if I can spare the time. So if you know any of the meetings that I have, any of the gatherings that I have, usually there's a time limit. We start on time and we end on time. And our perspective of looking forward to our next meeting is going to be a lot higher. At least for me, it's also true that if I know, I'm going here and I'm beginning on this time and I'm ending on this time, my likelihood of doing something like that again is going to be fairly high. So again, for those of y'all who are interested and can spare a little bit of time, not only to come out to pray for yourself and your family, we are meeting on Friday, October 12th from 6:30. We'll begin at 6:30 in the church with about a half-hour adoration time. One of the priests and or layperson will give a talk, and then we'll have some silent time for prayer, and we'll end with benediction and be out of the church for about 6:30, and then we'll head into Assumption Hall for dinner and fellowship, and I'm hoping that'll end around 7:30, 7:30 ish, give or take. So this is an opportunity for you not only to pray for yourself, your family, and also to get to know the people around the area. Last time we had people from Belrose, Pankerville, and Pier Part join us. And so I'm hoping for the same this time. Right now, as of the number, we haven't gotten the Pier Part number yet, but right now we seem to be having around the mid 20s of participants. So about 23, 24 participants have signed up so far. So if you're interested in joining at St. Anne Assumption, contact Mr. Charlie Bailey. Over at St. Philomena, contact Mr. Craig Stevens. If you don't know either one of those, call me at the office. And if you're really stuck, text the emergency phone number, and we'll sign you up some way, somehow, so that you could join us in that fellowship. All right, so the article for this week, I had titled it, What's Out There? So this past weekend I gave a homily on the readings, particularly the passage from the Gospel where the Lord says, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it will be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea." Now, I explained the reason why I brought this up was because a lot of people came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Father, why in the Old Testament you find God so angry and so violent, but yet in the New Testament he's all of a sudden had a change of heart where he is so kind and merciful?" So we pointed out a number of passages in the Old Testament where the Lord was very indeed kind and merciful. He did acts of kindness, and he was very merciful towards sinners, even wicked people. And then I got them to turn to the New Testament where he was very angry and violent. And the one passage that was pointed out repeatedly, especially at the masses, because I did ask for it, was the passage where the Lord had cleaned out the temple. Although that's a point, that's a part where he was very angry and seemingly violent. It's not as violent as this one right here. So here he's saying that the little ones are basically his followers. You can think here little children. Typically, because the language here is little children, you think of children, of little ones. But it's not just that. He's also talking about the innocent, the vulnerable, and even the ignorant, the ones who don't know any better. Okay, that any one of us who do know better, who lead a life of a bad example, or leading a life that contains tons and tons of bad models for other people to follow, in other words, leading other people astray, it's better for that person to have a millstone wrapped around their neck and then be cast into the sea to drown. Now, you're probably thinking, millstone, what's a millstone? Okay, so here I'm going to post an image on the screen here of what a millstone, specifically the kind of stone that would be used to grind grains into flour with. And one of these stones easily could weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Okay, so he's not talking like a small millstone, he's talking a greatly large millstone. So anyways, right after I gave the homily at the 9 o'clock Mass, I had asked all the parishioners to take out their St. Augustine hymnal, open it up to the Holy, 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 which is also known as the Sanctus, because we didn't have a cantor and I wanted some music. So as we began with the preparation of gifts, and after having prayed the preface, I went into autopilot and I started to recite the Sanctus. And a few lines into the Holy Holy, I was like, yeah, I wanted to sing this thing. So I made an attempt to go, guys, let's sing it. But then it felt like I was just talking into thin air because everyone else continued as if they didn't hear me. Some people stopped. It was kind of awkward. They laughed. It was quite funny actually, with the way that we messed up. And then some people stopped. Some people continued on, and it got to the point where it was at the point of like no return. And so I was like, okay, you know what? We're gonna start this thing over. All right, guys, let's go ahead and sing it. And then still, some people didn't hear me, and they kept on going. And so by the time they figured out, oh wait, we're stopping, it was at that point where like we were stuck in this awkward position where we couldn't restart nor continue because I lost the place of where we were even at. So at this point, I was like, you know what, you know what, if we just you go ahead and kneel, I'll just continue with the consecration. And something hit me in later on after communion that gee, this was an example of one of those things where you have a leader seemingly okay. This is not wrong. Like we recite it instead of singing it. It's not wrong. It's just an analogy. That I made a mistake in that I had asked everyone, hey, let's go ahead and sing it, but then I made the mistake of leading it with the recitation of the Sanctus, and then going back and trying to fix it. So it's kind of like a mom and dad trying, or not even trying, but like setting a bad example, setting a bad precedence for their children, and then later on seeing, oh wait, they're doing something bad, and then trying to fix it. At that point, it's almost kind of too late. Yes, we make mistakes, okay, but to repeatedly do the same mistake over and over and over to where our children pick it up, that's not helpful. And so that's what the Lord is here is trying to talk about is those who are intentionally leading others astray can potentially see their end not so well, seeing their ending ended up not so well. So what I wanted to say here is, especially in the guidance of students in the teaching of our children, we do need to be more careful of what we say and what we do, and that is also true for priests. Okay, as we're leading a whole congregation of parishioners, the things that we say and do ultimately impacts how parishioners pick up. I've heard it so many times. Father, I went to confession, but such and such priest said that that's not a sin. When clearly, in fact, in the catechism of the Catholic Church, in the teachings of the Church have explicitly mentioned whatever they're doing is a sin. Okay, so I want to end with this, and this is from the Rite of Baptism for Children. And this is specifically the blessing for the father. So after the baptism is completed, he gives three blessings. The first one is for the mom, the second one is for the dad, and the third one is for everyone else gathered. And here's what the priest says while blessing the dad. God is the giver of all life, human and divine. May he bless the father of this child. He and his wife will be the first teachers of their child in the ways of faith. May they also be the best of teachers, bearing witness to the faith by what they say and do. So as I'm praying this every single time, I'm also reminding the mom and dad that your children, and likewise your students if you're teachers, your parishioners if you're a priest, that they ultimately pick up on what you do, all the good things that you do, and also all the bad things that you do. And so may we support each other in that endeavor, that we may always teach our children, our little ones, what is right and what is wrong, that our little ones and ourselves also may always follow after the Lord. Anyways, y'all have a wonderful rest of the week, and I will catch you up in the next episode.